Green Home NYC has 3 main programs. Our Green Careers program typically hosts monthly events the second Tuesday of each month. These events are great for people interested in starting or transitioning into a career related to sustainability. Our monthly forums are usually held on the third Wednesday of each month. Each forum focuses on a different topic under the larger umbrella of environmental sustainability. Our Green Building Tours gives you the chance to see real-world examples of sustainability in action in the built environment. We also publish a blog on our website and a monthly newsletter that offer quick ways to learn about topics that matter to you. Everything at Green Home NYC is done by volunteers. No paid staff, no offices, and yet we have managed to run these events for over 15 years. Our organization is a great example of what volunteer professionals can accomplish. If you're interested in volunteering or to future events, please feel free to reach out to any of us through our website, here at the event, or by replying to the Eventbrite registration email you received. We would be delighted for you to get involved. Okay, so tonight's event, we're going to be hearing from our expert panel of speakers on solar energy and energy storage. The solar and energy storage industries are at an inflection point where we have the chance to exponentially accelerate their growth or see them hampered by tariffs, import bans, and resilience concerns, among other things. While those battles are fought on the policy front, the work on the ground to actually deliver, build, and operate these systems is ongoing, with all of the challenges of the present moment being faced. At our monthly forum, we will be speaking about what's happening in the solar and energy storage industries in the field and on the front lines. Our speakers this evening are Michael Bowes, Senior Project Engineer at Energy Safety Response Group, Alex Norman, Vice President of Canopy Design at Distributed Solar Development, and Jamin Bennett, Co-founder and Vice President of Business Development at Sunkeeper Solar. In terms of the format, we'll have each speaker go through their presentation and then conduct a Q&A with the audience at the end. And now I'd like to pass the floor over to Mike Bowes, our first speaker.
Hey, Crystal. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks to everybody for joining. I know these Zoom meetings have gone on a lot longer than we expected, but appreciate you joining. Happy to be here. Let me share my screen. As a quick note, I've got 2 monitors up here, so I'm going to be that annoying guy that kind of is looking off in the distance. Apologies. As Crystal mentioned, I'm Mike Bowes. I'm Senior Project Engineer here at ESRG, our Energy Safety Response Group. Talking about energy storage safety considerations for the New York City market. I'll just keep flipping through these. Also, as a
Mike, I think I still might need to share your screen still.
Yeah, it's like the first time I've ever done this, you guys. All right, can you see this?
Yep.
Right, good.
Yep.
Good. Perfect. I just ate up a minute of time. All right. So, like I said, Mike Bowes, Senior Project Engineer here at ESRG. We really focus on energy storage safety, and it's really kind of what we were built on. There, as Crystal was saying, there's a real we're at a real inflection point right now in the energy storage industry, and recently there have been a lot of incidents regarding lithium-ion battery fires, which I'll be kind of going over a little bit, but we really kind of exist at the intersection of engineering and kind of fire service, and about half of our team members are retired from the FDNY. They were pivotal in creating actually a lot of the developments, code developments rather, in New York City for energy storage systems. also do a lot of testing, UL 9548 testing, FDNY filing, expediting, ESS design, safety, etc. You can read all these on the screen. Let's see. So yeah, just as a background, real quick, I also am a volunteer here at Green Home NYC doing a lot of data for them. It's pretty much been working exclusively in energy storage safety in New York City for my short career, I suppose. I worked at Sustainable CUNY a few years ago before joining ESRG, so I was working really directly with the FDNY, the Department of Buildings, Mayor's Office of Sustainability, to flesh all this stuff out, get the permitting streamlined for energy storage systems. So as I'm sure all of you are aware, we're just seeing a rapid increase in energy storage systems. This is a chart from the of Con Ed energy storage applications from 2011 to currently 2021. What is this? August of 2021. So you see the huge increase in applications. These are all just systems under 10 megawatts, by the way, that are connected to Con Ed. So there are actually probably a lot more that are in the queue. We have installations going up in all 5 boroughs. They'll range from rooftop systems on apartment buildings to ground mounted systems that are safely tucked away in different areas. They're mostly just lithium ion coming up. As I'm sure all of you are aware, or at least that are in the storage industry or solar, there are so many constraints with permitting in the city, not only just safety wise, but just size constraints. So it's been a real fun ride so far. I won't bore you with too much of the energy storage 101 stuff. For our purposes, we're talking about lithium ion batteries. You can see here that, I don't know if you can see the cursor or not, but when we're looking at these, we're typically talking about lithium ion battery cells, which are placed in an energy storage module here, placed in racks, and then put in these enclosures. There are different kinds of enclosures. You can think of like ISO shipping containers, or actually what we are seeing more often now are these cabinet style enclosures. But there are different types of energy storage technologies, lead acid flow. We're not going to really focus too much on those right now. Also wanted to mention that there are different chemistries of lithium ion. So for the most part, or at least in the recent past, they've mostly been NMC. We also have LFP, which is lithium iron phosphate. They both have different properties that you can kind of get to the bottom of when you start putting them through thermal or other abuse situations. So this is also going to be an interesting presentation, because I'm going to be speaking mostly on energy storage safety, and it's kind of just a big bummer in most cases. Nobody wants to hear about it. Everybody wants to be supporting the grid, installing their renewables, and that's all great. But there have been incidents in the past. You can see a timeline of some events. These are just notable events that I think are important to lay out. Obviously, they're all important in one way, but a big one that I want to point out is was in April of 2019 in Surprise, Arizona. There was this, you can see here, this battery, kind of a dedicated use building, looks like an ISO shipping container, where a bunch of lithium ion cells failed, resulting in off-gassing, which we'll talk about. And the fire department showed up. They weren't really sure what to do. They were sizing up the area. In the meantime, gas had been accumulating in there for hours. They went to open up a door. The thought process is that they're letting in, an amount of oxygen. The condition inside the container was reached an explosive limit and blew up injuring a bunch of the firefighters that responded to it. You see this chain link fence. One of the firefighters actually got blown through this fence, landed about 75 feet through it. So there are complications that come in when safety is involved here. And up to this point, there's been very little understanding, training around emergency response for these systems. Recently, we've also had incidents in Standish, Michigan, and Illinois, Victoria, Australia, and only a month or so ago at Moss Landing, the world's largest energy storage system. This is just another kind of breakdown of those incidents here. Again, once firefighters were injured, and I mean, you're looking at a lot of losses too in terms of investment. So it's on people's radars. Really, around 2019, we got a real kind of burgeoning of interest in safety. Primary hazards of lithium-ion batteries. The real kind of characteristic failure mode is this thermal runaway, which can be caused by any sort of cell failure, whether that's impact or just heat exposure, electrical shorts, things like that, in which potentially flammable gases are going to be released from these battery cells, leading to more heating, leading to propagating cell failure across batteries. Once that gas is allowed to accumulate, you can get an explosion, as we see here. This is a kind of containerized unit, and an explosion occurring. There are a lot of different considerations when the fire department's showing up. There's going to be potential for stranded energy staying in these battery modules. You're not sure if you're shutting it down, what effects that's going to have on the grid. Lithium-ion fires are also just very difficult to extinguish. As you might have seen in some of the Tesla vehicle fires, things like that, you'll have fires going on for hours, if not days. There are approaches and defensive tactics that the fire departments are looking at, in which sometimes it's better to let these systems burn than be opening them up, interacting with them up close, and if there is an explosion. Here's just a quick video of some testing. This is the off gas from failing lithium-ion cells. This might have actually only been one cell, but all of this gas, if that's allowed to, and I know I sound like a broken record when that is allowed to accumulate in a confined space, and given the source of ignition, can explode. There are different methods of trying to mitigate these risks. Water has been proven to be the most effective for cooling. Very few things can really stop thermal runaway once it's begun. There are some different gas phase suppression systems out there. You've got some like Novec 1230, StatX, that are good for electrical component wiring fires, things like that, that if start, can help prevent it from spreading to fires from spreading to battery modules. Also, there are means of exhausting these flammable gases out via exhaust ventilation systems, NFPA 69, or these deflagration vent panels, which have been big on FDNY's radar. The thought being, if a flammable or explosive atmosphere is allowed to accumulate and blows up, you're going to have the pressure vented in a safe direction away from any first responders approaching the area. Additionally, you have battery management systems for basically all these energy storage systems to monitor the cells, modules, and provide any corrective actions. The FDNY in 2019 provided to a lot of the industries the light some rules on, or rather a rule 60801 for outdoor stationary storage battery systems. And so that took effect October 1st. It establishes requirements for systems that are located outdoors. So nothing indoor yet, but it provides construction requirements, location requirements, requirements for different protection systems, et cetera. You can kind of see a chart here giving some size thresholds and different requirements there. So some of these requirements that have been a particular note, we provide a lot of filing and expediting of these projects. We've dealt with dozens and dozens of these, and the same sort of issues keep coming up, namely having the right listings, the right certifications, and then UL 9540A large-scale fire testing, in which you're essentially driving battery cells into thermal runaway and seeing what gas accumulates, what the different temperatures are, and using that data to design a safer system. That's a real important sticking point for the FDNY, and they were really kind of pivotal in driving the industry towards using that. Additionally, for new energy storage systems, they're looking to be used across the city. You need a certificate of equipment approval. For that, you need to apply for TM2. So it's another one of these FDNY forms you got to fill out. But having the right information for them to review is important and a big sticking point. Each one of these installations need to be supervised by someone with a certificate of fitness, a B28 for energy storage systems. This person is going to be responsible for showing up to the scene if there's an incident. So therefore has to be knowledgeable in the specific system, the different protections that are provided, the location, all of that. They're also supposed to be there within 2 hours of receiving a call. Important things also are separation distances to different exposures. So that's lot lines, public streets, vehicle parking, etc. They require dry pipe water fire suppression systems designed in accordance with NFPA 15, as well as a big thing that people also have been missing are these fire department connections. They require 2 of them located at different points on the site. Another one for redundancy in case they can't reach it, and they can come around to the other side of the site. Again, explosion mitigation. They've really been adamant about the explosion protection via NFPA 68, those deflagration vent panels. And I kind of included a quick image here to give you an idea of when the first responders are showing up to the scene. They essentially are looking at, a black box. They don't know what's going on inside of it. You can sometimes get some information from the battery management system if you're getting that information at all. That's provided the system hasn't gone down, that the right signals are being received. But really, there's a limited amount of information, and they have also required this smoke gas purge system, which is basically completely unique to New York City, required by the FDNY, so that if they do arrive on scene, they're able to basically flip a switch to exhaust this gas out of the enclosure. So again, you see here gas accumulating here. Again, they show up, they have no idea what's going on, but they'll have the switch at a location safe if there is an explosion, that they won't be impacted adversely by it. Again, they have additional requirements for energy storage systems located on rooftops. So they'll have some different requirements there, requirements for temperature, vehicle impact, security. Another important thing to have on your radar is 24/7 remote monitoring of the BMS system. That can be provided sometimes by different system integrators provide with their systems, but a lot of the time it's up to the developer to figure out how they're providing this, and a lot of people aren't prepared to provide this information when asked about it. Different electrical component requirements here, 9540 listing is also another important certification that is honestly at this point fairly difficult to get just because of time frames for essentially nationally recognized test labs, their queue being filled up essentially. So I kind of just was planning on running right through this willy-nilly. So I'll leave it at that, or I guess if anybody has any other, or I guess we'll save questions for later. But I guess I'll hand it back to Crystal and give you guys like, what, 5-10 minutes of your time back. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was so interesting and a really pressing aspect of energy storage that I don't think we talk about enough. We really have to balance out the need for safety and how we're going to get there with our excitement for the energy transition. So next we have Jamin, who will be speaking from Sunkeeper Solar. So Jamin, will have you speak next.
Thanks, Crystal. And Mike, great presentation. Thanks for getting the energy storage conversation kicked off. And as you brought up, safety is critical to the success of an individual project and then also to the success of the industry as a whole. So thanks for taking the lead on that. I'm going to share my screen, which hopefully everyone can see. Right. So I'm Jamin Bennett. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Sunkeeper Solar. And Sunkeeper Solar, let's see if I can get it to go. There we go. Sunkeeper Solar is a EPC company. So we do engineering, procurement, and construction for all types of distributed generation systems, primarily solar systems, energy storage systems, and cogeneration systems. We focus in the New York City greater area. And as part of that, today I'm going to primarily be talking about energy storage systems to kind of stick with the trend that Mike started. But later on, you can also ask me about solar systems if you're interested in them. We also offer feasibility and design consulting services that's often used on new construction buildings or larger rehabilitation programs where there's a large design team working and they need some either solar or energy storage expertise on the team. And then the last part, which is what I'm going to start with, is notice to proceed engineering. And so that is an engineering service that we offer for landowners, for financiers, for real estate owners who want to either put a solar or energy storage system on their sites. And this really came from wanting to build more energy storage systems and realizing that before we can build them, we had to make sure that they got permitted. And so in order to get it permitted, I'm going to walk you through a few of the first steps. And Mike did a great job of bringing up kind of a lot of the issues that you face on the front end. And so I'm going to, I'm going to head through how we address a lot of those issues. So it all starts right with selecting your energy storage site. And as you can see from these two pictures, one of them is a better site than another. And I think probably everyone on this call can identify that putting an energy storage system in the middle of Times Square may not be as beneficial to the or easy to get permitted as putting it in a lot, an empty lot that we have on the right side of our screen. Now, this is a pretty easy comparison, but a lot of what we do is helping developers and helping real estate owners identify where is the best location for my energy storage system from a safety perspective and from a constructability and therefore a cost basis. Once we go through finding the right site and finding the best place on your site, we go into our energy storage system selection. And so there are lots of different options out there. And also, as Mike had brought up in his presentation, there are lots of certifications that are required for New York City, and really a lot of those are not required elsewhere. So we make sure and we look at potential products to help owners identify, which type of product they want to go with. We have spent a lot of time, working with the Tesla product, which is shown in the top right. The product in the bottom left is a lead acid solution that was actually put indoors, and on the right is a simplify solution. Once we know where we're putting our system and also what type of product we're going to use, we get into our civil work, our geotechnical work, our environmental work, and our structural engineering. So what a lot of that means is actually heading out to the site. We have been doing as Mike had showed, there has been a large boom as of late in energy storage systems. And a lot of those, due to the safety factors that Mike brought up, have been going on areas with more space. So as a part of that, if it's an undeveloped lot, the very beginning is typically us going out, taking care of surveys, doing actual borings in the site to figure out what's there, taking environmental samples to make sure that the site can be developed. And then finally, and what a very exciting part is the actual permitting and expediting. So there are multiple fire department TM1 applications that need to go in. The number of them and the type of them really depends on what type of system we're doing. There are OTCR2 applications, DOB applications, DEP applications, Con Edison applications, and potentially more if there's any sort of other environmental issues or wetland issues or anything else that could be brought up. And it's really important when you're developing these projects, right, to identify all of the different AHJs you're going to have to potentially interact with and get them started, because timeline is important, and many of these depend on one another. So you don't want to be held up on getting your letter of conditional acceptance because you haven't started going to a different entity yet. And then at the very end of all that, we get to move into the construction phase. And so now I just wanted to focus on one project that we were working on in Queens. If you remember my first slide, I was showing a picture of a pergola type system on top of a building. But what you didn't see there, because it's not shown in the picture yet, is the fact that we were actually putting an energy storage system next to it. And Sunkeeper Solar was a subcontractor on this job. And unfortunately, we didn't get time to get our client on board to come join us. So there is some information here that I won't be able to share, but I will share as much as I can with you guys. And the main thing, and here's the energy storage system that was later installed. And the main thing that I, want to bring up to everyone here is that making these systems work in New York City is possible. But it does require, enough leadway and enough time in order to make it work. This was a particularly interesting project. The energy storage system is actually used for peak shaving, some demand response, and also backup power. So it was able to help this building in multiple different ways on the economic side and on the resiliency side. One thing I always like to kind of try to bring up to a group is what was our biggest challenge. And on this project, as it occurs on many others, it's the permitting timelines that you need for the FDNY ESS TM1s and the permitting timelines for the OTCR2 applications. And one question, that I'll bring back kind of to the group as a talking point, is really just a big part of these permitting timelines, and the reason why they're extended is the lack of personnel that are available to review them. So there are tons of applications going in, and also a lot of the individuals that are charged with reviewing these projects, right, are not just doing energy storage work. They're doing, lots of other types of reviewing lots of other types of applications. So they end up with very large backlogs. And we as an industry, right, are happy to be accommodating, and we can certainly move fast, but we need to be able to have a quicker back and forth to move this industry forward. And I will stop there, and later on allow people to ask questions on the project, kind of give you guys more time to do that rather than me guessing as to what else you'd like to know.
Thanks, Jamin. That was very comprehensive and brought a lot of attention to the entire process and being able to be conscientious of the amount of time that we need to allot for especially the permitting aspects and understanding those local AHJs. So thank you for raising awareness around that.
Thanks, Kristen.
And yeah, and our last speaker is Alex Norman, a vice president at Distributed Solar Development, and he'll be sharing with us more about solar canopies. So this will be our the solar perspective we're bringing tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to sort of share the front lines of what I do every day, which is the design and engineering and construction of solar canopies. Similar to the energy storage, I think we've seen a considerable uptick in demand for canopies at our company, primarily because we've been able to achieve a certain cost point that has made it possible, as with developing all renewable distributed assets, cost, we're always challenged with the cost considerations. And so what I figured I would go through here is show some of the more current types of structures that we've been designing to build some of our built projects, as well as addressing some of the common considerations that we have to make early on in a project to establish whether or not a site is viable, which I think is one of the biggest barriers to more people taking on in the solar industry, taking on canopies confidently, is that there's just an added level of complexity and diligence required, and it's just there's a lot of critical things that have to be identified up front, like any solar project, but just some additional nuanced ones that are specific to canopies. So like I said, here's just a high-level overview of some of the things we'll talk about. Sometimes I take it for granted that whether or not people have experience in the solar industry. I've been doing it for about 13 years now, designing and building solar projects. So, but I feel like everybody has, some idea of, what the most common solar, right? You got ground mount and rooftop solar, right? Both of which have their own specific challenges when it comes to siting, engineering, getting approvals, and all of that, whether it be structural, on existing buildings, reviewing structural and getting roof warranty holders on board, or if it's ground mount with endangered turtles and whatnot that lives on these green fields. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with that, but what I do have to deal with is more structural in nature, and so here's just a few examples of some of the projects that DSD has built, in the past year or so, where we have essentially two types of structures, high level that we have. We have long span structures, which you can see on the upper two pictures are built on top of parking garages. And then there's actually on the upper right-hand corner here, you can also see a long span that's built on the ground. But then on the lower pictures, those are more common canopies that you'll see on ground lots, given their flexibility to be integrated into varying shapes and sizes of parking lots. So I guess what high level again, what makes canopies different is oftentimes we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? We're trying to find a way to integrate large industrial-looking structures into oftentimes not that type of parking lot, right? And so what I show here on the right is one of the hardest jobs, one of the most frustrating jobs, I'll put it, that I had to build when we decided, hey, let's see if we could try and build a continuous curved canopy, just because we wanted to get additional capacity out of this site, and the roof was off limits. Again, so some of the challenges that we faced, or that we face on every job, some more than others, is that they're highly customized structures due to the design criteria. Snow loads, wind loads, all being specific to the regions and jurisdictions. It minimizes the amount of pre-engineered components that we can rely on from our fabricators and vendors. And so typically we approach all projects as a custom engineered structure, but following some general rules of thumb. So they all tend to look more or less pre-engineered or the same once they're built. Additionally, similar to batteries is there's certain specialist skills and experiences that are required in order to understand how to site them properly. And so in this case, whether it be, geotechnical engineers or even specialty drillers who know how, of which there are only a few, in the Northeast who really know how to have a cost-effective way of drilling and pouring foundations that are 15 feet deep and 36 inches in diameter. Additionally, there's when compared to developing other types of solar sites, there's additional engineering expenses associated with them. You have your steel engineer, you have your foundation engineer, geotechnical engineer. You got to hire underground locate services, sometimes GPR with more expensive equipment to operate. You'll have planning, on the regulatory side, you got consultants and planning consultants and civil engineers and things like that to get the necessary approvals. So some of these things are sort of fixed costs for a project, whether it be 200 kilowatts, and in a gas station, or if it's 2 megawatts, right? That you still have to have a certain level of diligence and specialized people working for you. So yeah, on top of that, obviously it's more expensive to build a new structure than to put it on than to add a solar array to an existing structure. So there's costs that have to be borne there. And then also something that I think has scared people away in the past is just a lot of unforeseen conditions can really turn a project upside down after you've already mobilized, right? You can do all the geotech drilling you want in a parking lot. That's not going to really tell you how well your drilling is going to go, and if you're going to be hitting obstructions. We've hit unknown oil tanks and obviously bedrock, or you find all sorts of things under these parking lots that you would never expect, and then once you've started, you're sort of stuck paying the bill until you can get it done. So again, the purpose of sort of running through some of these things is that maybe this might help anybody who has been had people looking to put solar in parking lots, and maybe it was just sort of shied away because they don't necessarily want to take on that risk if the economics don't look good enough. Now the benefits, I feel like I are kind of intuitive, right? For those of us who know about solar, right, is well, one is nice is that it's built on previously developed land, right, which streamlines the approvals process. You're not going into a green field, you're building on top of a parking lot, and you're not changing the use of that parking lot. So it's usually considered an accessory use. So while you still have to go through a certain number of planning and zoning approvals, typically it's sort of considered a win-win proposition, other than maybe a little bit of an eyesore, and that's a subjective. One of the greatest things I love about it is that there's no roofing manufacturer. You don't have to deal with reinforcing an existing structure. You don't have to deal with roof warranties. And to be honest, it's when you have solar that does pose a fire risk, when it's up in a steel structure with very little to burn and highly visible. So if there ever were a fire to start, it's something that can be addressed. We consider them to be safer than putting it on a rooftop system where oftentimes, if you don't have the proper alarm set up, you can get a fire that does a lot of damage before you get a chance to isolate it and put it in and put it out. Another thing, we always talk about, 20-year terms on PPAs, and hey, we're going to come in here, we'll build this, we'll leave it there for 20 years, and at the end of our agreement, we'll remove it. Well, the reality is that if like us, we try to build quality galvanized steel structures, there's no reason to pull it out. Something that provides value for shade protection and other things like that. Why remove it after 20 years? Keep it, you keep it up, you make it with finishes that last a long time. And you can leave those solar panels up as long as they're working and you're willing to maintain them. And maybe in 20 years, we'll swap them out for some new technology, right? And retrofit it, right? They really do, they really can last a long time. So some of the things that we've seen in driving, the decision to go with Canopies. I show IKEA here because they've made very public announcements about how they are trying to go net zero on their retail stores. And so our company has been working with them to do so. This is a picture of in Baltimore, White Marsh, where this store actually is projected to be net zero. They did a lighting retrofit. They have the existing rooftop system, and then we add the canopies in the parking lot. And which is actually quite a feat, right? In my opinion, that a large retail store of this nature could actually be net zero or even energy positive with an on-site system. And so obviously the best thing going for Canopies is if you have a large load and an existing service at a building like this, and you have a large parking lot, it is an ideal situation to put a solar canopy system. Not everybody has a good open roof, but everybody has a parking lot that they would love to put some shade on. It's highly visible. So people make a big PR. It's another way to sort of make solar sexy again after everyone's kind of like, okay, it's solar, we get it, right? But it also, it shades the parking lot, provides, lowers the ambient temperatures around. And again, they just generally tend to be viewed as positively and favorably by everybody who sees them, as long as they don't cause functional problems. And I can touch on those in a minute. None of these pictures here, I just pulled these off the internet. I wanted to give some examples of commercially available products that are not sort of custom designed structures like we do on our team, where they really do run there's a wide range of styles and steel materials that they're made from. Everything from, this is I believe Quest Solar. They have, I think they call it a space frame, right? It's a highly engineered lightweight frame that goes together really fast, but of course it has a unique look, right? Whereas this one on the right here is a low cost, light gauge purlin system, but you'll notice that it's got double columns, right? And so not everybody wants to necessarily pull up next to a double column and then open their door and bang it on there, so there's considerations there, right? I don't know where this picture was taken, but there's no snow guard on the low side, right? Out here, people tend to be concerned about the snow and ice that melts through the gaps and freezes on their cars, or falls off the low side and has to be plowed out of the way so cars can back out. The one on the left here is a GE, an older generation GE canopy, but it's just top of the line, right? It's fully decked, watertight. Really about the best possible product you can get. And then on the right here is something that Tesla is out there doing. I believe I haven't spent much time out west, but I know that they of course have a higher sort of spec for their products aesthetically, and so they have they've been doing these supercharger stations, and of course those of us who know is that, a canopy of this size, would probably charge a single car, like would make enough energy for a car to drive 5 miles, in one day or something like that. So, it's more just for the future of EV charger, right? This is what we're all talking about, right? Integrating more ancillary systems, and grouping them together to really build out sort of future infrastructure for an electrified grid. Right? The only thing that's missing from this picture is like a big old Tesla battery, dropped right there. Ideally where it won't catch on fire and burn any cars. Okay, so just for fun, I figured I would throw in one of the IKEAs that we looked at, which is in Brooklyn, and kind of just go through really high level for anybody who's looking at, aerial images, being like, where should, I want to try building some carports. Where should we do them, right? Well, this IKEA store here. I've highlighted in green, the areas for the solar, right? Highlighted red, which is trees that have to be removed, right? Oftentimes you have to address tree removals and some sort of mitigation in order to get your permits, right? And then I highlighted in blue the trees that are to remain for aesthetic reasons, right? You want to, it's best to not cut down trees if you can, but I highlighted in blue because they still may be tall enough or grow tall enough to grow in conflict with the canopy and cause shade, and will likely require tree trimming over the years to prevent it. So it's just something that has to be considered at the start of a project. So that way, you're either replacing them with trees that won't grow big, or making a plan to keep them trimmed back. And similarly, I've called out the shade from the building, and as well as the point of, the point of connection, right? The interconnection point. And but one of the things that is oftentimes not obvious without knowing how to look for it is something like what I highlighted in red here, right? So because this is Red Hook waterfront, these IKEA built this over an old what do they call them, graving docks, right? So these are old shipbuilding dry docks that they filled in with sand and dredge from who knows where, right? And then paved over it. So there's actually 2 of them here. I highlighted one, but as soon as we saw this and we looked at historical records and talked to the original environmental company that oversaw the development of this parking lot, it became very clear that the idea of having a single structure that we're drilling, large foundations into the ground, which, the walls of this, this is a 30-foot deep dry dock, right? With massive concrete walls, so we haven't gotten very far on this one yet, mostly because the idea of building this just seems so ineffective and costly that we've rediverted efforts to other sites, while they work out this one. So anyway, that just goes to information gathering. Sometimes it's the facilities guy who's been there for 20 years who's the best person to tell you, like, oh yeah, I remember when they tried to do something out there and it went horribly wrong. You guys should know about that. So next is just, something that oftentimes people aren't thinking about, but it's the real estate and regulatory considerations. This is a portfolio of projects where you have to get a title report. You gotta plot the easements. You gotta have an attorney read the easements, exclusive, non-exclusive. Can we cross them, or do we need to get permission to cross them? And so, entitlements are really more like zoning setbacks, tree removal, any sort of discretionary approvals that are a prerequisite to getting that. And then, of course, the easements are, all these dashed lines everywhere, right? Which is that, okay, these buildings have, sometimes they're just storm drain lines that are connecting, the street over to a drainage, depression or a wash somewhere. Sometimes it's actually, the electrical companies bringing in their services to feed the building. So we avoid those with our canopies, wherever possible, but we still have trenches that cross through these easements to connect to the building. There's no way not to cross them if you want to dig a trench, and so we have to bore underneath what's out there existing and get, a crossing easement approved by whoever holds that easement. So that's just something that, can frequently, the invisible things, the invisible overlays onto a parking lot that you don't think much about until ideally you think ahead, but sometimes it's too late, and then you're scrambling to come up with a plan B. Also, there's again, trees, landscaping, for places that have irrigation. You don't want to disrupt irrigation, or and then lighting, right? We take down light poles and you have to add new light fixtures. You got to meet the code minimums and whatever the sites require for safety and things like that. And of course, stormwater, right, is something that's becoming more and more of an issue as heavy rainfall events happen more frequently. When you're adding impervious area, and solar panels, even with gaps between them, are still considered, impervious in many people's minds. You have to account for that increased runoff as a result. Just kind of taking it one level deeper. What we do once we've done those sort of preliminary real estate and financial analysis, we've gotten sort of a green light to move forward on the project. Doing our geotechnical borings, right? We do a number of them in the location of our foundation, as is shown here on the left. Obviously, if you haven't seen a geotech boring report, this is one page out of like a 50-page report where they show, hey, it's 2 inches of asphalt, 4 inches of gravel, and then sand, right? But this tells us what we need in order to have the engineers design foundations to resist the loads of the structure, as well as to give it to our drillers to be able to price out what the cost is to drill. Drilling in sand is easy, but the sand collapses, so oftentimes you have to do sleeve drilling. So you have to advance a sleeve down into the hole as you're pulling the sand out, right? Which is very very costly, a very time-intensive process, as opposed to drilling. But I'll still take it over drilling rock, which is like even crazier, right? Because you have to put core barrel with teeth on it. Anyway, and then on the right here is just a mark out of the really just the mess of which parking lots can be covered with electrical, communication, stormwater, gas, regular water. And this is actually I think it's like a 12-story apartment complex down by DC, just for reference, right? But I threw a picture here how we overlay a canopy onto an area like that, right? Which is the magenta circles are our foundations, right? They're spaced for optimizing the steel structure, and then we have to adjust it to try and conform and miss all of the existing utilities, right? You got gas here on the left, right? We're about 5 feet away from that, right? Which is a little close, for comfort, but we do it. Here water in the middle, also even closer. So we typically pothole, we suck it out and locate it before we start drilling anything. But you can kind of see all this. Some of the design priorities. This goes for both the canopies, but also batteries, which are more and more paired with canopies every day. The solar plus storage is sort of part of the equation, right, to make the economics of the battery work. So we're on commercial sites that typically don't have a lot of extra space. They usually fill it up with parking lots and buildings. And now we're trying to drop batteries with their requirements, as well as panel boards, and at the same time not reducing the total number of parking spaces. That's always a fun conversation to have, right? But it's better to just take a couple of parking spaces and have them accept that that's part of getting a project built. Module stringing and structural optimization, right? This is sort of where companies like DSD, we have our electrical design team and the engineering team, and we work hand in hand with them on the architectural and structural side to come up with the most value engineered structure that also optimizes stringing and inverters. Column placement, fewer columns, the less, fewer frames you have to fabricate, the fewer foundations you have to drill, more cost effective. And then of course, you got to take other civil considerations like, matching grade and making sure your canopies don't have like kinks. You want it to be a nice level canopy surface. few other, just a few other pictures just for fun. We've been doing a lot of batteries, but I could not find a lot of photographs, but I did find us craning one Tesla battery into position. So there's my contribution to the storage side here. But yeah, engineering battery pads, I think this unit, once it's fully loaded, is supposed to be, it's a Tesla mega pack, right? I think it's like 50,000 pounds or something crazy, and so that is no joke when you're designing for a slab, and especially when it's on like a hillside, which it kind of is here. Yeah. So this is again, a little bit of context for how big the drill rigs need to be and the type of equipment that they. This is actually sleeve drilling that they're doing right here. They're drilling in a detention basin. It's all gravel, and so they had to use this sleeve drilling in order to keep the gravel from collapsing into the hole. Yeah. Again, it's kind of more of the same. But yeah, that's the end of my presentation, and happy to take questions if anybody has any. So otherwise, I'll pass it back to you, Crystal.
Thanks, Alex. That was fantastic. I really like that detailed walkthrough from site selection to engineering and all the examples that you gave. So thanks for that. And now we're going to move on to our audience to see if we have any questions for our fantastic panel. So if there are any questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat and we will get to them. So I think we can start with Gregory's question. Gregory, would you like to go off mute or ask it, or I can also ask it on your behalf? Just let me know.
Oh, you can go ahead with it, Crystal. Thanks.
Okay, sure. So this goes to all of the speakers. We would like to know, what is a top item from your wish list that you'd like to see policymakers and regulators make happen? That is a very interesting question. I don't think we've talked much about policy.
I'm happy to take that one first. So on the energy storage side, it's what I mentioned about timelines, and it would be great to see the state or city or NYSERDA advocate some funds over to OTCR and the fire department to dedicate additional personnel to reviewing these projects. If we're able to shorten these review times from what they are now to, what we're kind of seeing on the solar side, that'll speed up the whole energy storage industry and will make financiers more comfortable with the projects and will really incentivize investment and project execution. On the solar side, I'll just speak for New York City. And for New York City, the biggest thing to push solar projects forward is a replenishment of the community credit, which is a incentive that the state offered to try to incentivize community solar projects throughout the state. In New York City, unfortunately, a lot of the solar credits went to non-solar technologies. And so we are hoping that the state will replenish the incentive amount that was taken away, which then increases the value of these projects to something that is acceptable to the project financiers that we and others work with.
Yeah, I want to hit on Jamin's point, and also, great job to Alex and Jamin for great presentations. Gave me a lot of appreciation for all the hard work and detail that goes into getting all these projects together. But yeah, I think that, and I would also agree with Jamin's point. It'd be great to see more support for the FDNY, especially on their end for reviewing these. The timelines can really get stretched out. There are a lot of there are multiple departments that are looking at different aspects of the system, and people have been trying to solve this problem for quite a while, whether it be NYSERDA funding or whatnot. But I think that hopefully coming up in the future there will be some some help that's provided there. Nothing's certain, but there have been some steps that are being taken to address that. So I hear.
Awesome. Any
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's my turn. I think Jamin and Michael sort of touched on it. I'm not a policy guy, but they're clearly more informed than I am. But yeah, I do, I mean, I do know, again, just with the challenges from my personal experience, it's just that, we have a lot of challenges that us in the industry are trying to come up with solutions for. And so, any support that goes towards, incentivizing or allocating funds towards whether it be storage or these are $1 million batteries, right? I mean, like or canopies would go a long way to support them, without necessarily falling into the same trappings of that sort of cash grab mentality that has plagued sort of developing technologies and developers in the past.
What do you think the solution to that mentality is, Alex?
Well, like I said, I don't have a lot of opinions on it because I'm not well informed enough, to really to state an opinion.
Alex,
but I just said, those of us who've been around long enough, it's you just see if there's money made available, the savviest will swoop in and find a way to scoop it up. You know what I mean? And it's more about an equitable, how do you incentivize it in an equitable distribution? That's your guess is as good as mine. I just design and build them, and they're usually somebody smarter than me has figured out how to make it work before that.
Mike, if I could chime in with a thought, I think the end goal and what really needs to happen in New York and elsewhere is to actually incentivize utilities and developers to work together, so that rather than this idea of incentives, the utilities are actually incentivized by the states to help developers and to encourage development. And I think the normal way to do that, right, is not incentives, but actually just increasing the value of generation in certain places. And I know New York State is, working on that and trying to incentivize it. So I think we're in the beginning stages here, and I, hope that the conversations continue.
Yeah.
I mean, and on a simple level, right? Like I said before, it's kind of a win. There's only one loser in these situations, or perceived loser oftentimes in these situations, right? It's a win-win on so many sides, but once you get the utility aligned to, with the people who are, everybody else and their priorities to build these projects, that seems to be what the real tipping point. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, it's just been interesting, and I'm a bit of a one-trick pony. So in terms of, really all I focus on is the energy storage and the safety, and just I'm seeing all the money that's being made and just watching people kind of rush into it because like you're saying, there is so much money to be made. And the technology is still developing. The safety mechanisms are still being developed, and it's just tough to just, I guess, watch people cut corners sometimes. Not that everybody does that. Everybody always is thinking of safety to a certain extent, but it's just very interesting, and also realizing that the two have to be balanced. You have to be developing projects. It can't just be all holding things back because you want another added layer of protection. It might be in some people's view unreasonable. So there's a lot that goes on there.
So to kind of go off a little bit on the great information you guys just shared there, back to what Gregory was asking, the second aspect of the question, is there anything that ratepayers can do to push this along in addition to from the policy side and the regulators? Anything more you guys would like to add there?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing that ratepayers can do and that New York residents can do, right, is reach out to your representatives, especially right now, where there's a period where in New York City, this community credit has lapsed and has not been replenished. It's really important that we tell, because there is a large fight going on at the state level on whether or not something needs to happen in an interim period. Um, to where some members of the Public Service Commission are saying, we don't need these additional incentives, and we'll figure it out later on. There's some members of the state that are saying, I think they are needed, and the more ratepayers, the more companies, the more individuals that reach out to them and say, hey, we care about New York. We want to see more solar panels deployed. That's going to make a difference.
I want to hit on, and sorry if I'm taking over, Crystal. I want to hit on, Raul has a question about, is adding more application reviewing personnel sufficient solution? And does the regulatory personnel have the right attitudes towards these projects to get them approved? That's a good question. And for the past, however many years, it seemed like they're really just a giant obstacle. I think that the attitude has definitely changed. I think that they're becoming, and I'm just speaking, I guess both FDNY and DOB, I'm seeing them become more comfortable with the technology, and I'm seeing a lot of things becoming a lot easier. It still might not seem like it, I guess, from the outside, but I think that the attitude is definitely that they want to be helping to provide everything and get the city up to speed. But as I was kind of just getting into, there are a lot of unknowns there as well right now.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on what Mike was saying, sorry about the ambulance outside. To piggyback off of what Mike was saying, the first step in any type of town or city process, right, is developing the actual rules and developing the regulations that you need to follow. Since that has actually been done for energy storage systems now in New York City, the next step is we can follow those rules and send in the applications, but we need personnel on the other side that are able to review them in a timely manner. So that's kind of a big shift from where we were before.
Yeah, it's not fun to be in the situation where you've got your projects being dragged out, but I definitely agree. Like it's definitely a personnel and sort of bandwidth issue. I think that can be worked out.
That's awesome. And then I think maybe if Mike, you're up for it, would you like to answer your 2 questions in the chat about battery safety and how we're going to get to a level that we feel comfortable with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the question on data has been interesting and combative for quite a while, especially when like the 9540A testing was beginning to be required for everybody. It's expensive testing. It takes a long time, and people don't always like the data that they end up getting. There are a lot of things that go into play there. I would say that the industry is getting more experience with them. They're understanding different protection measures better. They're they're figuring out how to utilize the data a lot better. That was actually one of the drawbacks, just a few years ago. They got the data, but then you bring it to an engineer, a fire protection engineer, and they're not always sure, exactly how to be using it. The data that you get from these can be pretty complex and doesn't always fit nicely within a lot of modeling solutions. So it probably isn't a good answer to it, but I think a lot of it's just industry knowledge. I think it's education for AHJs. different AHJs in different areas have completely different understandings of these hazards, how to deal with them, not to mention different equipment available to respond to them. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I think it continues to come together. It's probably not a good answer.
Yeah, that is a real, yeah, Jamin, please go ahead.
Oh no, I think that was good. I was going to respond back to Les's question as well, which Les, you were asking about the practicality of battery storage systems on residential buildings. And so the project that I shared was a multifamily building in New York City, which did have to go through all the FDNY and DOB requirements. As far as what is practical, energy storage systems, now that the guidelines are there, we're generally able to look at different buildings, look at different zones, and identify what the savings are and what the actual costs of them will be, which allows us to do a pretty detailed financial analysis, which helps to answer that question of whether or not it's practical. And we are seeing, especially on the larger storage side, at least a full container, that a lot of these projects are practical, which is why we're seeing such a large uptick in the energy storage market in New York City.
Yeah, it's funny. Just a few years ago, I thought that kind of those mid-range 600 kilowatt hour systems were kind of right up the alley for a lot of urban use cases. But you're right, the large scale systems are really the ones that end up seeing the financial benefits.
Did we want to address anything further about expediting? Actually, I kind of wanted to add on to Raul's question about expediting in the regulatory process, because with what Alex was saying about the geotechnical engineering, like I was a little surprised to hear about that, because by education, I study environmental remediation. So a big aspect of that is with the geotechnical engineers, that's their entire career. It's to be able to figure out where they're going to put those borings, to figure out, is this a piece of land that they can build a project on? And so it's like we're going off these principles and these methodologies that we have. Like we have geotechnical engineers who are experienced in the soil logs and the borings. And we have AHJs that have permitted other projects and they know about their jurisdictions in other aspects. Then these new technologies come in and they're kind of, it seems like it's like a wave of confusion in a way. So I wanted to kind of combine that aspect of what I was hearing with what Raul is saying here about expediting these processes while maintaining a confidence and also safety. So how can we look at that, and does compensation in some way come into play for incentivizing the process to be more optimal, I guess is how I would put it, to optimize the process while taking into consideration the landscape?
Sure. So on the expediting side, there are expediters for all different types of AHJs. We are an expediter for the fire department, for example. Typically, it is more of a lump sum payment rather than getting compensated based on how fast you move a project. But that's not to say that if you were an expediter, you can try to pitch that as an idea. And then, Crystal, can you ask your question again on the geotechnical side?
Yes. My question is kind of just goes out to all three panelists, because you each brought up a certain aspect of what I hear is a legacy way of things being done. AHJs have existed. Geotechnical engineering using borings to figure out the geomorphology and whether it's safe for construction, that has existed. But we're still running up to like these bumps in the road and challenges where the whole point of geotechnical engineering, for instance, is to avoid exactly what Alex was speaking about. But it sounds like it happens, even if it's not frequent, if it happens to a point where you've already spent you've gone through a certain amount of time in the construction schedule, it really does hurt like the bottom line. So want to know if you guys could speak more on that as well.
Can I just I want to hit on Raul and Jamin's point really quick. Sorry, Crystal, just
Go for it.
before I forget about it. In terms of like the expediting, I just want to emphasize that, the regulators, and if we're talking about like the FDNY or DOB, they really can't be compensated for moving things faster. That would like end up being a bit of like a corruption sort of thing. The expediters like Jamin and us over at ESRG, we coordinate with the agencies and can file things, but at the end of the day, when these agencies review things, they'll be dished out to a random reviewer there, again, because they can't show like a preference, just to reduce any types of sort of corruption like that.
Yeah, and just maybe to your point earlier, it seems like it's challenging to identify, what can be sort of cut out, what may be a non-applicable legacy process that is being improperly applied to a new technology approval. And so it's, things like geotech, I think, well, I mean, for batteries, I don't know how, necessary it is, I guess. But I know for the canopies, it's just like, there's just no way. That's just one of those things that you can't cut it out. I mean, you could go to code minimums and design everything to code minimums, but then the cost, then you're just doing a larger pad. So it's definitely a trade-off. But yeah, I think it's like, that is the right question to ask though, right? Which is like, where can there be things that we all agree are not productive and can be cut out without, cutting corners where it really matters, in the design and the ultimate safety of the project that's installed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, because with like just the sheer number of parties involved. So is that just theoretical at this point?
I mean, it seems like most people could speak to, the questions mostly revolve around storage in New York City. So, I'm not sure how many hands they touch as they go through their approval process, but that's why we have expediters, right? It's because they're the ones who shepherd them between them all, right? So, but that's just for everything, right? I mean, I mean, I know, so anyway, I really can't necessarily speak to that, but maybe Jamin or Michael would know.
Yeah, sorry, we're taking all the air out of the room.
Not at all. I think you guys genuinely brought up really good points and have us thinking. So we can also ask some other, Gal has a comment that he would like to point out. The last time he checked, gasoline was pretty expensive and we use it and hang about huge caches of it every day. We just learned to be careful.
Yeah, and yeah, explosive rather, potentially expensive as well. Yeah, that's a really great question that gets brought up a lot, and the answers to that are probably less satisfying than people might like. But when it comes to gasoline, it's just much more well understood. You can create predictive models and determine, how things will react in different environments. Additionally, codes and standards kind of have been developed along the way that, again, because there has been so much experience with it already, but also, maybe there are more eyes on things now to where, the standards might be even greater for other things. In the difficulty with lithium ion batteries and that gas that they end up venting is it just changes so much based on like a litany of different factors, the state of charge, like I was talking about, the technology or the form factor and chemistry of it. Different electrolytes will kind of be more dense or less dense when they're produced, and they're also produced in different compositions or percentages, I guess. So you'll have some lighter gases rising up to the top of a container, other ones sinking down to the bottom. You have to think about all the fluid dynamics that goes into that, and then the modeling tools that it's just more difficult. It's not a homogeneous mixture, and you can potentially model it as such, but then you might not be getting as accurate a result. Hopefully that helps.
Yep, and one other thing to note there is, I think when the idea of gas stations, right, and big storage, idea of storing large amounts of gasoline were brought up in New York City, there was the same type of hesitation, right? And it took some time before they, as Mikey brought up, to say, hey, here are the codes, this is how you can do it. You gotta dig down, put it in this much concrete, right, and store it underground because that's the safest place for it. And if anyone's interested in learning more about if that's the safest place for energy storage systems, we could have a longer discussion about that. Feel free to message me at another later on.
Yeah, I know there was like a liquid natural gas, I think, explosion years ago that I think I heard or might have killed a first responder, and really completely like pumped the brakes on that. So anything that happens here, there's going to be a real reaction to it. So that's why if something goes wrong in the city, it's going to be scrutinized very heavily.
Great. And did anybody want to comment on Les's two questions? First one is kind of going off of some similar topics we touched on with the amount of time a new building developer should allow for the FDNY and DOB approvals of a rooftop lithium system. And are there accepted equipment systems that are known to be accepted by either of those that would require less approval time? So going back to the idea of how can we expedite approvals?
Yeah, I'll be happy to start. So there is a process, the TM2 process, that is actually equipment specific. And then once the manufacturer has submitted to the fire department and they've approved it, that approval can be used for other projects, right? As long as you're using the same exact equipment. And there are certain manufacturers that have already gone through that and already have their equipment accepted. Of course, you have to really read through all the fine details, right? It's going to be accepted, but there will be limitations on how you can use it. And kind of to your point, right, the MEA number, which allowed you to install equipment in accordance with manufacturer instructions, that is basically what it is. But to date, and maybe Mike knows more than I do, but I don't think there is an actual publicly available list. So a lot of that has to do with being in touch with the manufacturers and receiving that information directly from them. In terms of the right amount of time, that really depends on the size of the energy storage system. The larger it is, the more in depth the review will be. But especially if you're working on a new construction building, right, you can kind of orient that into the normal design process. So as you're designing and permitting the rest of the building, you just kind of do it with the energy storage system in tow.
Yeah. In response, yeah, Jamin, that there isn't anything that's publicly available at this time, so it is just reaching out to people, and then it's a very short list, so a lot of people are still having to kind of go through that process. And also, as Jamin pointed out, it is for a limited like kind of packaged system. So you have to be using the same equipment. They might provide that certificate of approval for ground-mounted systems, but not for rooftop. So you would have to kind of go through the process a little bit more for another system. So yep.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We want to thank everyone once again for joining us this evening. I honestly think that we had a great panel, and they really brought a diverse set of perspectives to get us thinking about solar and energy storage. And now we would just like to plug some of our upcoming events. So here, yes. So as we mentioned earlier, this event is part of Green Home NYC's monthly forums program. And next month, we'll be planning and preparing for our 2022 Forums and Green Careers events and hosting our final monthly forum of the year. So that one is going to be on November 17th, same time, and it's going to be about heat pumps. Also, you can check out our website and learn more about our future events as we're headed into the new year and read our blog. So thank you everyone for joining, and a really, really big thank you to our panelists. I really learned a lot. I hope everyone else did as well. And you should follow us on our socials at the bottom.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks, Crystal.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great night.